Wow. Just wow. I've still got the Gervonta Davis interview. He's talking to the guy from Showtime Sports, and he's just giving his due props to Leo Santa Cruz. Wow. So I'm going to start with Inoue versus Jason Moloney. I know you all want that. So I uh, I watched that one. It was a seventh round destruction. First three rounds, Jason Moloney, he started coming out pretty well. He was popping the jab. He was moving it around the ring. He was actually getting a few three-piece combinations off, and it looked like Inoue was just holding back a bit. He wasn't throwing too much, but every time he threw, he seemed to throw a few telegraph shots. Now he did knock Jason Moloney down. I think I'm going to say in the fourth round. So this fight it wasn't too exciting, but it only because Inoue, I thought he would have stepped it up a lot faster. So maybe it was because it was his first time in America in a few years' time, and he was just getting to know Jason Moloney and the bubble and having no crowd. But he didn't go all out like I expected him to get rid of Jason Moloney in the first three rounds. After that first knockdown, you could see the confidence just grow and grow with Inoue. He was jabbing up to the body, he was switching, he was moving around, he was ducking and weaving, and you could see the confidence just build from there on. He was throwing some right uppercuts that were landing, and he's obviously an orthodox fighter. They were landing quite well. You'd obviously get the 1, 2, and a couple of left hooks that come in from Jason Moloney, but nothing that really moved Naoya Inoue backwards. You could tell he was a lot thicker person in terms of his back. He just seemed naturally like a wider guy, probably because he's shorter. They usually tend to be a bit stockier. And it was funny, Tim Bradley and Andre Ward did actually make statements on the fast twitch of the monster. He does come with speed, and usually speed brings power, but with Inoue, he actually has speed and power, so he's bringing both of those together. He's not using one to generate the other. And they also compared Naoya Inoue to Teofimo Lopez and Manny Pacquiao, who have that speed and power. Now, he does remind me a lot like Teofimo Lopez, the monster. He doesn't come in that Philly shell though, which is quite interesting. He does have a peekaboo style, classic sort of stance, and when he moves forward, it makes it a lot easier for him to start stalking people, and that's what he did towards the sixth and final round. He started stalking Jason Moloney as Moloney was fading. So you could hear in the corner, they didn't want Jason Moloney to punch hard. They didn't want him to punch. They thought he was actually trying to knock and throw too hard a punch. They wanted him to have short, snapping punches and move away, get in and out, and also fight in the pocket effectively. If you're going to have someone stalk you, you're going to need to fight in the pocket effectively and then get out. So that's what Jason Moloney was able to do for a couple of seconds in spurts throughout the later rounds, but he did eventually get tagged with a overhand right, so he landed flush. The funny thing with the way Inoue threw it, he didn't actually throw it with much momentum. He just threw it almost like a Deontay Wilder when Wilder threw that right hand that knocked out Luis Ortiz. Just a straight boom, straight down the pipe. So he does have that one punch power. He doesn't need to use momentum or body weight just to throw it. He can just throw it just like a shotgun, and it just explodes. So that was a very interesting fight towards the end. I did think it should have gone a bit shorter than what it did have. The announcers, Tim and Andre Ward, were actually stating that the corner could have thrown it in because Jason Moloney didn't have the power to actually get the opponent off him. And what was his game plan? If he is actually missing just by inches with punches that can hurt Inoue and possibly knock him out, yes, keep him in the fight, but his strategy after about third round, after the first knockdown, was just circle and to just keep distance and survive. So in that case, it's probably best for the corner to throw in the towel. but he did show heart, and you could tell that when he got knocked out for the last and final time, he did try to get up, and his legs were a bit shaky. So usually in boxing, if you do go down for the second time, you're usually out. So that was really, really good stuff. Now, I had to quickly jump over to the PBC card. So today we've had lots of boxing. We've had the DAZN card with Alexander Usyk and Kambosos taking the wins. We've had Inoue on Top Rank, ESPN. And then I actually had to jump over to the PBC event, which was in the fifth round, unfortunately. I caught the fifth round of this fight, and I only got to a couple of more rounds after that. Let me just check exactly when this fight finished. So I will just keep it moving, but let me just move this out of the way for a second. So, yes, as I said, it was a destruction of sorts. Now, from what I was looking at on Twitter, a couple of the professional boxing writers had a couple of the rounds split. So they gave the first round to Davis, the second round to Santa Cruz, the third round to Davis, the fourth round, etc. It was swapping rounds. And then during the fifth round, I assume Davis was winning. However, Leo Santa Cruz in the first round did suffer a cut over the bridge of his nose, and that was a concern because I don't think Leo Santa Cruz does actually get cut often, and he does have a strong chin. So what the final couple of rounds that I saw, so the fifth and the sixth round that I saw were pretty action-packed. You had Leo Santa Cruz circling around, and it looked like he was waiting on Gervonta Davis a fair bit. Now, my previous prediction, my first one I gave for this fight, I thought that Gervonta Davis would take the win because Leo Santa Cruz throwing so many punches in bunches, he was going to create too many openings that was going to allow the underrated Davis, the counter puncher, the counter power puncher to have as much, it would be like a bistro for him. Have all you can eat, as many shots as he wants on Leo Santa Cruz. And then I flipped the switch when I watched the Blood, Sweat and Tears documentaries. I thought Leo Santa Cruz was going to come in. He was going to use the distance, come in, throw a barrage of combinations and then get out. So from what I saw and from what everyone was writing, Leo Santa Cruz was able to stay in the pocket, fire a lot of shots off confidently. So when I was watching the fifth round, it looked like he was able to throw a lot of combinations. They thought, the Santa Cruz corner thought that Davis's corner was actually slowing down, and he did look gassed throughout much of round six. So round six, it looked like Santa Cruz had won the first 2 minutes of that round. He was circling well. He's throwing shots, straight jabs to the body, uppercuts to the body, right hooks to the body. With Davis being a southpaw, throwing a right hook to the body would open him up for a so the non-dominant the non-dominant side for the southpaw. And so it was a back and forth after the first 2 minutes. I did have Leo Santa Cruz winning the majority of the 2 minutes. It looked like Gervonta Davis was getting tagged to the head and to the body, and he was slowing down and getting gassed out. And then I actually looked away for 1 second, and boom! It was incredible. Gervonta Davis scored a destructive uppercut against Leo Santa Cruz in a orthodox position, a left uppercut, which would have been normally in a southpaw stance. His bread and butter, dominant his dominant left uppercut. So he threw the left uppercut in a orthodox position. So it was a lead left uppercut in an orthodox position, not a backhanded southpaw throwing uppercut. It was pretty magnificent, and he did it while he was switching stances. Leo Santa Cruz, it looked like throughout round six, Leo Santa Cruz was winning the round until Gervonta Davis just sort of, something clicked in his head. He started to come forward, and he was able to easily push Leo Santa Cruz back into his eventual resting spot, where he got him into the corner of the ropes. Leo Santa Cruz, like the warrior he was, started throwing combinations as he was having success throughout that whole round. And then it wasn't actually too much of a mistake, but Leo Santa Cruz threw a 1-2, and he had this opening open. So he threw a 1-2, had this opening open, and then being in the orthodox position, Gervonta Davis threw a lead right uppercut, and it was all she wrote. Now, the scary thing was that Leo Santa Cruz was out for a long time. He was out like what was the Povetkin versus Dylan White. He was out like Ricky Hatton versus Pacquiao. He was out, and it was pretty scary to watch. It took him a couple of times. You couldn't see his chest moving. It was one of those things where you were like, "Oh my God, this is the stuff that you don't like watching." You don't want to see someone die in the ring, and it was that much of a knockout. It was scary. Now, only only after a couple of minutes did he start breathing. He stood up, and the classic Leo Santa Cruz was just smiling, smiling. The first thing he did when he woke up was start smiling. He probably didn't know where he was or what happened. But Gervonta Davis did actually show a bit of concern. He did do a slight celebration, nothing crazy. And to be honest, Floyd Mayweather celebrated harder than Gervonta Davis. It's almost like as if it was Floyd that won, not Gervonta. I watched an interview with Floyd yesterday where they where the interviewer asked Floyd about Gervonta Davis, and Floyd just immediately starts talking about himself and starts talking about how people compare Floyd to Lomachenko, etc., and giving Andre Ward props. So, he's in his own world. So he was off celebrating harder than Gervonta. Gervonta showed concern throughout the whole knockout after the knockout, while Leo Santa Cruz was struggling to just even awaken. So, wow, it was an insane knockout. Go and watch the highlights of that. Watch how he switches from southpaw to orthodox. I don't think it was a natural thing. His feet just landed in that position, and he threw the right uppercut, the left uppercut, lead left uppercut in an orthodox position. A very, very rare punch that you do show. Only a Marquez or a Mexican warrior like Julio Cesar Chavez throws that type of punch. However, in the post-fight meeting that I was watching just before I started this video, Gervonta Tank Davis, again, he doesn't seem to be cut from the same cloth as Floyd Mayweather. Yes, I know he's had his issues outside of the ring. However, he was very humble. He wasn't very brash. He's very soft-spoken. He actually spoke about Leo Santa Cruz and his team, and he gives Leo Santa Cruz's dad props for battling cancer. And whereas, someone like Floyd would probably say, oh, he's a true champion, and looking forward to the next fight. So Gervonta was still in the moment, still concerned about his beaten colleague. And yeah, he seems like a pretty good dude, pretty down-to-earth guy. He goes down to Baltimore, where he's from, all the time, and he talks to the people. He's who he grew up with, and just to show inspiration to those that are there. So he's going to be hopefully matched up with some YouTubers, like I'm saying, Ryan Garcia. Maybe, hopefully, we get him fighting Teofimo Lopez. You never know. Devin Haney. Also, you've got him facing maybe even George Kambosos Jr. So that whole division is stacked. That whole division is exciting. It's stacked. It's full of power. The only person probably that is maybe going to bore everyone is Devin Haney. He's got more of a Philly shell boxing mentality. But the whole division, apart from that, is very action-packed. So I can't wait for that 130, 135 division. With that, Gervonta Davis does take the WBA World Light title and also the WBA Super World Featherweight title. So he's now a two-weight world champion. Leo Santa Cruz, if he won, he would have been fifth, a five-weight world champion, which is getting up there in terms of the greats. So hopefully he gets another opportunity. He's an exciting fighter. The way that he did stand in the pocket and decide to trade with with Gervonta Davis instead of moving and boxing and making a very boring fight was something to applaud. Also, to hear the crowd there was amazing. There wasn't much social distancing going on in the in the closest stanches around the ring. However, there was right up in the bleachers. You could see there was smatterings of people and audience up there. So it was pretty exciting to hear, and things coming back to normal. So that's pretty much it. That wraps up today. Sorry I couldn't cover the first 1 to 4 rounds of Leo Santa Cruz, but I did have to see if the Aussie Jason Moloney could get through Inoue, and he couldn't, unfortunately. So at least we have George Kambosos Jr. waving the Australian flag. So going forward, what's next? We have Mike Tyson versus Roy Jones. Y'all must have forgot Jr. And also the one that you all don't want to miss, Nate Robinson versus Jake Paul. See ya.